Chapter 4, Knowledge Brings Change, Q&A. Bev, I'd like to ask you to elaborate on this statement for us. The only thing separating us from being exceptionally insightful parents is some education.
I think that every parent wants to be insightful. They want to be able to gauge what their child is going through, what their child's needs are, and what they want to be supported in. I don't think we can honestly sit down and say, no, there's a lot of parents who just don't care. I don't buy it. I think that parents are not equipped. They don't know how to. So it's like you might grow up and you really wish you could make a lasagna. It doesn't matter what it is. The only thing separating you from being able to make it is the education it takes to know how to make it, where to buy the things, how to put it together, how to turn a stove on without burning yourself, etc., etc. It's always about education. That's my deepest feeling. The gap between where I wish to be and where I am now is the things I don't know. And if parents learn how to equip themselves with that knowledge, they can create an insightful relationship with their children.
But would you also agree that with education comes effort? There needs some effort behind it.
Yes, absolutely. With education, effort is required in the learning and mastering of anything, whether it's archery or judo or cooking or relationships or insight. It always takes work and effort. And one of my favorite lines in self-development is, are you willing to do the work? Because people will say to me in marriage counseling and mentorship, well, do you think there's any hope for us? Absolutely. Are you willing to do the work? It takes work. You're absolutely right. It takes effort and energy. But the payout at the end of the day is so immense. We feel so much more empowered and our self-esteem goes up because we know more. We feel more capable, more confident in what we're capable to do. And so therefore we can engage in relationships in a healthier and more profound and serving way. But yes, it takes effort. I completely agree. Education takes effort.
Why is it important for parents to figure out who they are first?
I don't think it's only parents who have to figure out who they are for parenting purposes. I think we all need to know who we are for our own purposes in how we assert ourselves in our lives, where we're going to build relationships, where we're going to take risks, how we're going to articulate our emotions, where we're going to set our goals, where our balance will be, everything, how we relate to everything around us and preserve our dignity in the process is a knowledge of self. It's getting to know yourself. Do I know if I like bungee jumping? I don't know. I can look at it and I can get a sense that is not something I want to partake in, or, oh, that looks exciting. Maybe I do want to do that one day, and I can put it on a to-do list. Is it essential or not? That remains to be seen. But that is with everything. Know yourself, and then you know how you'll react and what you'll react to, and you won't compromise yourself too much. There's a very big difference between compromising in relationships and compromising yourself. And far too often, because people do not know themselves or do not believe they are worthy of not being compromised, they'll compromise. Then they get filled with regret and reproach and self-reproach and then resentment, and it just doesn't set up a good situation. We also have to know that as parents, because we so importantly need to know, how far can I go on this? How much can I contain? What do I need support in? Where do I not need support? How will I be able to handle this child's needs? How can't I? Where do I need to look for help? Etc., etc. And it's all about being willing to be vulnerable with yourself to say, here's what I can contain right now. Here's the work I need to do to be able to contain more. And yes or no, I'm willing to do the work. But then if I know myself, I know where I can put myself without compromising my child.
So, Bev, is it true then that if we have a better relationship with ourselves, we get to know who we really are, then we're naturally more accepting of others and who they really are, including our children?
Absolutely, Kelly. That's a spectacular insight. The more we know of who we are, the less insecure we feel about being challenged by the needs of others, the demands of others, or how they want us to move or shift in that space, so that we don't feel like, oh my goodness, this is going to break me apart, or I can't handle this, or I can't contain it. If I know who I am and how I function, then your need for me to be X or Y is quite easily reflected against what I can be, and I can honestly say, I'm sorry, that's not a space I can go into, or absolutely, yes, I could stretch myself to do that, but I know who I am, so I know where I'm stretching, where I'm compromising, what shifts I have to make. And with parenthood, that is so empowering to have that knowledge.
And in the book, you suggest that we learn how to identify other personalities. How do we do that?
There's so many tools out there today. I do mention it, that the personality side of people can be gleaned from this book, Personality Plus. It's a fantastic book. I should actually get hold of Florence and say, give me kudos, because I do think it's an outstanding book, and I think it is very practical and simple and easy to apply and learn from. And it's not a PhD. You don't need a master's in anything to be able to take out of it what you need to begin to learn and identify the personalities and the complexities of personality in other people. And it's so empowering, because if I am very focused on how things have to be, and they have to be scheduled, and they have to be analytical, and they have to be in line, etc., but I have a child who goes, let's change this, let's change that, let's change this, but I don't identify that this is a human being completely different to who I am and the genetic makeup of their personality, I might look at that child and go, no, stop it, you have to manage time better, everything has to be scheduled. We can't just pop out and get an ice cream. It wasn't in the day list. This, that, and the other. We misjudge who the child is, and we can cripple our children by not embracing who they are. My son and I are mentioned briefly in this chapter. We have similar bases for how we function, but we also have profound differences. And because I've been able to embrace those differences and recognize them not as weaknesses in him, but as his strengths, his needs, his focus, then I've been able to, as a parent, to look at it and go, okay, I would never do it that way, but that's his need. And so I need to be able to facilitate and contain that, so he doesn't feel like I'm judging him or seeing him as a lesser being and compromising him. It's not his fault. He's not trying to be the enemy. He's not evil. This is who he is. And by deliberately learning that, I can so empower the relationship. So books like Personality Plus are fantastic, and they're not that expensive, and they give wonderful insight. And then there are courses people can go on to, and there's numeric profiling that people can learn about. And I'd be very wary to go to people who are voodoo-ish about it and prognosticative. It's not the point. The point here is to learn about the essence of what somebody is supported by, what their absolute strengths are, and what their struggles are, so you can support them. That's the focus here.
And aren't we really showing each other who we are through our actions? Not only, for example, if a child can't speak, you can observe, and you really get to know their personality, I guess, practically as well.
Absolutely. We have to be able to go through the process of learning about our children and acknowledging they have the right to be fluid too. And I see so much struggle happening with parents who have a rigidity and insecurity about how their children have to become, so that they'll put them into a certain environment or a certain educational format or a certain prescriptive format, whatever that may be, and you have to become that way. And while the child is fluid and has to discover their own self, there's an insecurity that develops, and they start challenging that from a place of insecurity, not support. But we're fluid. So observe, let your child discover themselves and explore themselves in the environment in a safe and confined and loving context. It's essential.
So what I really got from this chapter, and we might be repeating ourselves now, but what I got out of it is to start noticing your children. Pay attention to who they are, not who you'd like them to be. They're not robots, they're human beings. Because I think we often forget that they are people.
Absolutely, and meet them where they are. Don't try and meet them where you want them to be, and recognize that if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 12, it doesn't matter how many children you have. You don't have one child. You can't use one strategy. You can't have one relationship. You have to blend your personality, your strengths and struggles, everything about you with that child's energy. create a synergy. Then you have to move on, create one with the next child. Then you have to create it with the three of you. If you ultimately want to have a beautiful experience of your own parenthood and their experience of you as parent, that is the process that I encourage people to follow, because I can see how much value it has when people do surrender to that. And yes, it's work, and yes, it's effort, but it is absolutely, like you're saying, it's the observation of who are you in this process and what do you need. Not that whatever you need is primary and everything else goes out the window. That's not what we're talking about. But certainly, how is this child compared to that child needing to be handled? Can I discipline both in the exact same way? Can I encourage both in the exact same way? Whereas I have to use very strategic manners to encourage my son to do certain things, and strong boundaries in certain ways and lax boundaries in other ways. Another child may be completely different. And I would be very ill-positioned to be working with every child I have in the same way. And a lot of parents do that, and they go, but it works perfectly with Tom. I just don't know what's wrong with John. Well, John's different. He has different needs, struggles, fears, etc. Very frustrating for parents if they don't get the education and the self-knowledge to know that it's okay that their children are different. And it's okay that their children are different to them and will want different things from them perhaps and need different things to them. It's okay. It's process. It's parenthood.
Thank you, Bev. You've been listening to the chapter on Knowledge Brings Change. Meet us back for chapter 5.